Hey everybody, this is the Inside Handoff Football Podcast, episode 10. That's right, we are now officially in the double digits, and we are just about at the halfway point of the season, but we got something more important coming up before that, and that is the trade deadline, which is 1 week from today. 1 week from yesterday. Depending on when you're watching it, 1 week from Tuesday. It's Tuesday, November 2nd is the trade deadline, and it is just under a week away, depending, of course, on when you're watching this. I am your host, John Venus. Truly pleasure to be here with you guys wherever you are watching and or listening to us from. We got some great stuff to talk about tonight. Who's most likely to be moved to different locations and what have you. And we've got some new stuff to talk about tonight, as well as some opinionated topics, I guess, and what's gone wrong with a couple of franchises who started out hot or underperforming big time. Joining me tonight, as always, are my co-hosts and colleagues. First man is the guy directly above my head. Zach, how you doing? Yeah, you're above me. Right. You're above me.
Hey, man, it's good to know that you know that I'm above you.
How many championships have you won?
In Dynasty or redraft?
Either.
0.
Either. And how many championships have I won again?
In Dynasty or redraft?
Either.
Dynasty 0. I don't pay attention to your redraft play.
Oh, that's because I've won twice. That's right. 2 championships to your 0, so put some respect on my name. And joining us, as always, he is in the corner up here, above me. Oh, you can only see one finger doing the point. So up here in this corner, up and to my left on your screen, up and to my right on my screen. He is the only other 2-time winner in our league. He's a 2-time Dynasty champion. I'm a 2-time redraft champion. Jared, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic tonight.
Okay, now before we get started, I've just got to ask the question. How do you feel 7 weeks in, knowing you traded your team, expecting that, they weren't going to perform the way you are, knowing you probably gave away a third chip? How are you feeling?
I mean, I think I sold a little too high on them right now because they're still performing phenomenally. And I mean, every single one of them. Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Travis Kelce. How's Mark Andrews doing? I haven't kept up with him. I assume he's doing okay.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so yeah, actually, damn, I got rid of Darrell Henderson too. I mean, he was a backup for me last year, and he's, lighting things up this year. So, I really had a pretty good team a year ago right now, and
I told you what I would have done. I would have kept them. There's no way I would have gave away a chance at a 3-peat. Because a 3-peat, you just get to swing your you-know-what around.
I mean, back-to-back, you get to do that, too.
Yeah, 3-peat's different, though, because you know how hard it is to get a 3-peat. If you could get that, you'd probably be the only 3-peat in our league history. It takes so...
It's nearly impossible to go back-to-back in fantasy. Even in redraft, it's hard to go back-to-back. I mean, I've gone to back-to-back championships, but I haven't won. I didn't win back-to-back. I won 2 and 3, so I guess I'm sort of more like, I don't know. I was gonna say Bill Belichick, but the hubris in that statement would just be so apocryphal. Let's say I'm more like Pete Carroll.
Is this something? It's not even fair. You guys both have championships, but I have the better winning percentage all time. It's just so cool.
Also, the fact I won a championship with Gio Bernard as my RB1 has to sting everybody in the league. Like, everybody has to look at that and be like, how did that happen?
Small mistakes have screwed me over.
Yep.
Luck has won me my second championship. In reality, if not for injuries or if not for injuries or a team suddenly playing like they're the '85 Bears, I could possibly have 4 championships. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but nobody on your team does the shuffle.
I could have had a championship if Kamara didn't score 50-something fantasy points. Unbelievable.
I could have won. I could have won the year that the Cardinals defense played against Russell Wilson in the final week, and showed up and played like the '85 Bears against him. That cost me a championship. All the way back in.
Let's not dwell too much on that.
All the way back in year 2, my own Packers screwed me out of a championship. Eddie Lacy got hurt and Randall Cobb didn't show up. That one hurt the most because it was my own real-life team that cost me a fantasy chip. That one hurt on a whole different level. But I digress, or we could go down that rabbit hole forever. So let's jump right in. Let's break the huddle on some more developments in a topic that I probably thought was beaten to death and we wouldn't be talking about again until the off-season. The drums of war are being beaten again in regards to the Washington scandal, the emails, the investigation, all that. And when I wrote this question, it was a very different picture. It seemed like the dust was starting to settle. So I asked the question, is the worst of the Washington email scandal over? Since then, the one owner in the NFL who you do not want pissed off is now pissed off. I'm, of course, referring to the only owner, second-generation owner, the only family that has ever sued the NFL while being an owner in the league. I'm talking, of course, Mark Davis, son of the late Al Davis, who had the lovely us against the world mentality, which you have to assume was passed down to his son, is now angry because, well, let's be honest, he's the only owner who has been penalized for a situation that didn't even involve his own team. And now the guy wants answers and a written report, and people involved in the investigation whom the league claimed wanted to be anonymous are now saying, no, we want a written report too. So Goodell's eating a lot of, I don't want to say crow, but there's definitely a lot of smoke here. So is the worst of this over, or is there a second battle yet to come here?
I think it depends on how you look at it to an extent. Like, I think it'll be continue to get talked about for a bit. The dust will settle a bit. But if these owners really, really want this information, they are some of the richest people out there. And I'm not saying that necessarily means they're going to get the information, but I could see lawsuits going down and stuff like that if they think there's some real stuff being hidden, and because like we don't get to hear the behind the scenes stuff, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of chatter that's always going on, and I'm sure there's people that were inside that management, I don't know what word, inside of that franchise, with the football team franchise I'm speaking of, that are aware of certain things that occurred there, certain messages, emails that were sent, discussions that were had, and they know that information should be out there, but for whatever reason they're not going to, whether it's legal, personal, whatever, they're not going to give that information out, and the league clearly doesn't have any indication or want to give that information out. But if it's there and we're hearing, like, I'm just going to make up somebody, but we'll say the owner of the Atlanta Falcons is hearing some stuff from other people, you know what I mean, behind closed doors, and he hears this and that, and so-and-so is not getting punished for certain things, and, you know what I mean, things that he isn't maybe even ethically okay with. I could totally see this being out there, because I don't think Dan Snyder is the most liked person throughout the NFL. Put it that way. So I feel like, I'm sure he has some friends, but I also feel like he has some enemies. And yeah, that's how I see that.
Jay, what about you? What do you think?
I mean, okay, you don't want to mess with Mark Davis because he has to wake up every day and look in the mirror with that haircut, so he's already pissed off at the world. Roger Goodell is the puppet, and the 32 owners are the puppet masters. So ideally, he's going to put out a statement stating that, okay, everything's good. We've finished our examination of the situation, and nothing needs to come out to protect other people. Of course, the owners don't want anything coming out. Everything that's come out so far, we've already seen Adam Schefter have to issue an apology for the way he was emailing certain owners, offering them not only their insight, but their control over an article that was posted. We saw John Gruden lose his job almost immediately. So I think like Johnny kind of hinted at, there's definitely smoke and there's fire, and people aren't going to let this go away. And I think that's important because I think more heads are going to roll. I don't know who, and I don't know when, but this is too big of a story now that they tried to sweep it under the rug, where it's like, okay, we've dealt with the issues, we did our thing, and everything's fine. It's like that Leslie Nielsen scene. Just disperse the crowd. Nothing to see here, people. No, there's a problem, and enough people know about it now that more of this is going to leak. And another thing, with the John Gruden issue that could come out more, why were these strategic leaks coming out just geared towards what they wanted? Who wanted John Gruden out? Funny, those were the emails that came out, but then there's, thousands others that remain under lock and key for some reason. Maybe they're protecting an owner? I don't know. But
that's what I was thinking, was something along, like, there's a reason, like, I feel like unless, like, you have ulterior motives, you should want these emails opened up. You know what I mean? You should want to see what's going on. That doesn't necessarily mean you're guilty of something, but I feel like that means you do have reasons. You know what I mean? Why would you not? You know what I mean? Unless there's a reason, why would you not want them out there? So I'm assuming there are some guilty parties out there that really don't want some things read. I also think there's just some people that are like, yeah, I don't like that this might open doors for me later in some other situation. You know what I mean? That's the other thing that people aren't considering is when this happens, if these emails get open, even, we'll say, I'm just going to make it up, the Chargers and the Falcons are two guilty parties here, but that's it. I'm just making this up. But there could be, say, 4 years from now, another investigation that occurs, and now emails will all have to be open there, and that might, you know what I mean? Let's not pretend this is the only thing that could be occurring in the NFL or has occurred in the NFL. These are some of the biggest bigots in the world that have been part of this. I'm not saying everybody is or currently, but in the history of this sport, there's a lot of those people around there. And to pretend that we think that this is the only thing, so I guarantee there are some owners out there, or some, I shouldn't say owners, some higher management people that are afraid that if this goes through and this gets open and emails are seen here, this might open up something for us later, you know what I mean, in a different investigation, or find its way to hurt us. And I think that's a big problem as well.
I think you both
do not want it.
Yeah, I think you both bring up a lot of good points. I think, to me, like, I don't want to say the answer is simple here, but really, I think that, yes, this is, Roger Goodell is a puppet of the 32 owners. But at this point, there's one owner, very loud owner, who is very angry. And that owner has, his family history. If he is anything like his father, that's the one owner that Goodell does not want angry. Because Al Davis pretty much tried to burn the league to a certain degree, and did, for a good chunk of that, late 70s, early 80s period, with the move to Los Angeles and the move back to Oakland and opening the door for teams to just up and move on a whim until the league kind of, corralled that back in and said, you got to go through these processes and this and get the approval of the other owners and all these other hoops that didn't exist prior to Al Davis suing the league. That, those things, this is not an owner you want angry if he's anything like his father was. And you have to assume he is. He's kind of taken that same attitude as his father had and learned at the feet of his father and all those other things. That this is an owner that will fight for what he believes is right and what he believes is the best thing for him and his franchise.
Which is his right to party.
Regardless of the other 31 owners in the NFL. He doesn't care. All he cares about is Mark Davis. And that's a it's a smart thing to be, right? I mean, yes, the ownership is a collective of, the elite, but, you still got to worry about number one, and that's you. That's not the NFL. Robert Kraft doesn't care about the NFL so much as he cares about how the NFL affects the New England Patriots. Jerry Jones doesn't care about the NFL. He's proven that time and again. I mean, look at the, was it the Nike sponsorship? when he kind of said screw the league in the early 90s and signed a sponsorship deal with Nike and Pepsi, despite the league being with, Adidas and Coke at the time, and signing independent sponsorships that was not done at that point, yet now is commonplace. But
I'm sure a lot of teams in the 90s were with Coke.
Well, that was the 80s.
True.
But, I mean, to this point, like, if you look at it, I don't want to say historically, but if you look at the situation, this was an investigation of the Washington football team, then Washington Redskins. And the only team that has paid a truly tangible price is the Las Vegas Raiders, being basically forced to fire John Gruden, regardless of, Mark Davis's own personal opinions on the matter. He isn't exactly a quiet guy that, would bellow to the world, and the reports started coming out, and then the league suddenly said, oh yeah, we also have these emails we can release.
We've had 4 months.
But they had them longer than that. They've had them since this investigation. This investigation was, 3 years ago?
They're aware of the John Gruden message emails.
I think they've been aware of them longer than that, because this investigation...
Reports. All we have is reports.
Right, but this investigation was kicked off years ago. As best I remember. I feel like this was definitely pre-pandemic.
Well, this started with the whole the cheerleader thing down in Mexico or whatever. That was
the photo shoot and what have you. All those,
they had to give up their passports and ID and whatever, and
it's the general sexual harassment of take topless photos or you're fired. That's not how the world works, buddy.
Workplace environment.
Which we then find out he's using as currency with other people. Even better.
Yep.
It just there's so many issues here that the league needs to sort of, as they'd say in the business world, open the kimono and just show us the investigation file, show us what you found, show us these issues that are there, because we know that these reports exist internally at the very least. Roger Goodell wasn't sitting through 20-hour meetings listening to every piece of evidence given. That's not how it happened. He was given a report by the investigators to make his decisions.
This was originally an external investigation. And
it all the way was.
Something came out, and then the NFL was like, no, okay, we'll take it from here.
Well, it was an external law firm employed by the league, I believe.
And then all of a sudden, they flipped the switch and were like, no, we will take it from here. I think there's a reason.
They did that for the punishment thing. The actual investigation was done by the law firm, but the punishment was, of course, done by the commissioner, because the commissioner is God in the NFL, or at least he thinks so. But that goes back to the beginning of the NFL. The commissioners always thought he was God. But I don't know. There's going to be a reckoning here, and I think the only tangible way for this to happen is it's been rumored for years, but we've actually seen the NFL is afraid to do the one thing the NBA has to this point: force an owner to sell their team. The NBA is the only professional sports league in the world, I believe, that has ever forced an owner to sell their franchise. They did it to I can't remember who's the Clippers owner. Zach, I'm sure you know this.
Sterling.
They forced Donald Sterling to sell his team, and then Steve Ballmer bought them and has brought the team back from the brink of destruction to prosperity.
They're love the Microsoft Clippers.
They're afraid to do that here, and I don't know why. Because
for the longest time, the owners are the ultimate, boss mode.
But the problem is there's 31 other owners, and it's fast approaching the point where there's going to be issues that all of the other owners are going to have to face, where Dan Snyder is not worth the hassle.
No, they'll protect their own.
How going to be on this podcast to the NFL? Because if we're going to be realistic, the reason they're afraid and they don't want to get our owner is because it might be a person of color or of some other minority that is able to purchase it, and they won't have a valid reason to say no to this person.
That's true, and I don't. But there's still the ownership committee, right? They still have to go through the validation process. They can find a way to. Let's be honest here. They can find a way to invalidate any ownership group they want.
Yeah, but it just makes it look worse. If you don't remember, these are a group of rich white men.
It's the old boys club.
True.
Yeah,
Essentially,
these
yeah.
guys, let's not pretend like these guys aren't friends. Like, may not be friends with all the owners, but he's friends with a bunch of the owners. Like, these are his legitimate friends and business partners, people that make money together. They don't want, and like I said, some of them are bigots. They do not want some minority to come in and take the place of one of their buddies. That's it in a nutshell. That's the answer, man. They don't.
I don't.
The league doesn't want that. They're not okay with that. They don't like. It's going to change the league forever if that happens.
The problem is, I don't disagree with you, but the thing is, there are a lot of, we talk about the elitist mentality of the ownership groups, and it's just an old boys club that you have to be an old white man to enter, and that to this point has been true. Eventually, somebody's going to change that. We already have.
They're going to fight it, is what I'm saying.
Oh, they're absolutely going to fight. I mean, they fought when.
That's why they don't want to fire him and make him sell. Because if he goes to sell, I guarantee you, LeBron James and a group of other minorities will put an offer in for that team immediately.
Yeah.
But the problem is there will also be equally qualified, and that's a statement I'm going to emphasize. Equally qualified old white guys that they'll happily let in.
But not quite, because LeBron will bring a different image. There is no one that doubts that LeBron becomes an owner. It will just help the NFL. The only thing it hurts in the NFL is the old boys club. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that
I think
they
though
protect each other
absolutely
until it threatens one of them.
I think
like I will fight to the end for my friend until it comes back to me. Then then they'll just cut the ties loose. But it hasn't reached that point yet.
I think, and this is just me purely speculating on a dime, that we will get to this point. Now, I think within the next 3 years, the Washington football team will be sold to a new ownership group. I almost.
Well, it depends how serious this gets.
I just mean in general. Dan Snyder has been on wobbly legs as far as the ownership statement of that group has been for years. Going back to when
the last time an NFL team was sold?
Oh, was it Carolina?
I think so, and that wasn't that long ago.
No, that was
maybe 10 years ago.
Not even, like 5.
Within the last 10 years. Yeah, and unfortunately, they sold that to another old white guy who's also since been outed as a bigot. But that's another story. I think that you're right when you talk about. Yeah, I think you're right when you say that it's going to be a minority group, and it probably will be, but they will have a front. They will be very smart, and they will have someone that football cannot deny. They will be smart.
I genuinely think like LeBron James, Alex Rodriguez, Magic Johnson, those names will group together. These are the richest of the rich.
And you're right. I don't disagree with that. But
Peyton Manning,
they will find exactly. Jared just dropped the name. They'll have a Peyton Manning too. They'll have somebody that the old white boys, that the old boys club can't deny.
Yeah, but that still changes everything because LeBron and them will.
It does, but Peyton would be the managing partner. He'd be the guy in the old boys club. Everybody else would be. They're just the minority owner. I don't like the phrasing what we're talking about. But they'll be the minority owners. They'll be the silent partners. Yes, they'll be there. Yes, their voices will be heard, and it will have a significant impact on the NFL as a whole. But to the elite old boys club that is NFL ownership, whichever stalwart football player, football personality they bring to this group will be the owner of the team. Yeah, he'll be the guy at the owners' meetings.
It's not really that simple though. Like if you have LeBron James is involved a lot. For example, his players, they can kneel. 100%. There will be zero problems, zero repercussions. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and that's just like part of it. Like these are things that the old boys club is afraid of. These are the little small things that LeBron James and these guys will allow to happen. I get it. There will be a different face and stuff, but you're no way. Even say Peyton Manning is not going to look LeBron James in the face and be like, "Yeah, I'm the face. You're not going to have it this way." LeBron James like, "Do you know who I am? I will just post that you're saying this, and then you'll be canceled by cancel culture." Like. You can't have that. You have too many businesses that rely on your image, Peyton Manning. You can't go out there and be like, yeah, I said no because I'm the white face of the franchise, even though our financial properties are exactly the same. Like, I don't know, man. Like I said, I get what you're saying. It's not gonna be as full blown. It won't be seen like LeBron James owns Washington football team. It's not gonna be as simple as that. But it'll be enough there that these guys are gonna be more than uncomfortable and definitely scared about the changes that will happen. And
I mean, I'll say this though. Like we talk about the old boys club, and but that's painting a pretty broad brush. There have definitely been some more open-minded owners in the years. I mean, we talk about Al Davis. Al was cutting edge. He hired the first African American head coach. He hired the first Latino head coach, and had success with them. He opened these doors. So it's not.
We're not pretending like all of them are. We're not
No.
Every race, not every owner, not every.
No. What I'm saying, like the way we've been talking, we've done in this segment, we've done a lot of generalizing, a lot of generalizations, and as a whole, I agree with that. I'm just saying that within that, there are still enough voices of the opposition that there are things they'll stand up for, and there are all things that they won't fight. I think the problem with Take a Knee that Colin did was he did it in an improper fashion. Like the message was fine, the reasoning was fine, but he didn't fight the battle the right way. He let sports media fight for him until after he was already drummed out. He didn't do the talking until after he was out of the league. He just did it, and he said why he did it, but he didn't fight with that conviction until he was gone, and then he spoke out more and spoke out more and spoke out more until
he wasn't trying to be an activist, my guy. He just didn't act.
No, I agree with that. But he let it become.
He wasn't on his Martin Luther King stuff because he wasn't trying to be Martin Luther King.
I agree with that. But he let it get wrapped up in this bigger issue. He let everybody else take his issue, which I don't want to say is smaller, because it's not. That's minimizing what he was fighting for. But he let his issue get wrapped up into the bigger battle, into the bigger cultural war. And it didn't need to be that. It became a small battle in a big war instead of a big issue. It became a tempest in a teapot. It became a small fish in a big ocean.
That's just because of how much bigotry they think there is.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't disagree with that. But he let it become that to a degree. Like, I understand. Like, we can look back on it and we can say all the things we want. We weren't in his shoes. We weren't fighting his battles. And nobody knows what he was thinking but himself, but the man himself. But, it became a bigger issue than what it was. Kneeling became what was, a cultural issue to a me versus America issue. It was never that.
The media turned it into.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's not on him, man. That's just they were just trying to shit on his.
No, and you're right, but I'm still saying, like, it was the silence there. Like, we talk about LeBron, and that's great. If LeBron James had been that guy, it wouldn't have become the bigger issue. It would have stayed focused on what he was actually trying to achieve, what he was actually trying to accomplish.
LeBron James is the bigger name though than Colin Kaepernick.
Fair enough.
Like, LeBron James is the face of a league and debatably the greatest to ever play in that league. Colin Kaepernick's just a jag, another guy.
Fair enough.
Like, that has a lot to do with things. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like we said, there's a change. I'm with you. Like, the league isn't. We painted it out to make it seem like everybody. We were very general with it, and there was like the league. NFL is just a racist league, and that's obviously not the case. But to pretend that there are some also bigger powers that are against change, I'll put it that way, that would also be us lying to ourselves as well.
Change is only good if it benefits the bottom dollar. That's the NFL. I mean, look at, again, we don't want to paint the broad brush, but if you look back to, segregation, they didn't let people of color into the NFL until they realized it affected their bottom line. Once they realized, hey, we can make more money letting them play too, let's bring them on in. It's the same as baseball. Like, it was never a skill issue. It was always a money issue. And once they realized they can still make money and more money by, unifying the league and letting everybody in, then they stopped caring. But, who knows? The NFL is probably the the last one to culturalize. It always will be, except for NASCAR.
We don't talk about NASCAR here.
No, we don't. All right, we spent.
Hey, let's go, Bubba Wallace.
We're half hour into the show. Let's move on to the next topic and actually talk about the stuff on the football field. We chased some real white rabbits this week.
It's okay. We don't have
we
that
do
big
that.
of a show planned.
We do that.
It works.
Yeah, it does. All right, let's move on to football topics, and we've got two that are relevant. We'll go with the shorter one first because I don't think there's really too much to talk about that. And that is, what the heck happened in Carolina? Start season 3-0 and haven't won a game since.
I'm not going to talk about 3-0 teams that haven't won a game since, so I'll leave this to you guys.
I think we kind of... Jay, what have you got to say? I'll let you do this, then I'll summarize it with how we broke it down in the pre-show.
That sounds like a pretty salty Broncos fan to me. But I think Carolina just got exposed. That the offense was good enough, and the defense just... I mean, they played bad teams. They beat the Texans and the Jets in 2 out of the first 3 games.
Yeah.
So, that's nothing you'd want to hang your hat on. And then they go face a good team in Dallas and get absolutely blown off the field, and they just haven't recovered. So, I think it's just a case of them having a favorable schedule the first couple of weeks. I mean, they snuck one out in New Orleans, but we don't even really know what kind of team they are right now. I mean, we'll probably get to it later, but they just picked up Mark Ingram, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, they're in a changing year as well, because I don't know if Jameis is the guy there or what they're doing there. They're a football team with no direction, and Carolina comes in and beats them. Okay. Not that big of a surprise. And I don't think Carolina is... And I think we got blinded by Sam Darnold being in a new offense and looking okay against some bad teams. But the first 3 weeks, you don't really know who's good and bad other than the Texans. The Jets had this new offense. They built the line. They're going to win some games this year, and they turned out to be the Jets. So by week 4, 5, 6, we have a pretty decent feel on what these teams bring to the table. And Carolina is one of those teams, and they're not bringing much to the table. So they are what they are, and I don't think it's going to improve. And
so what you're saying...
Arnold, didn't they?
I don't know. They might have benched him in this last game against the Jets. But
I think they did.
The crux of what you're saying is they are who we thought they were?
Yes, it just took a little longer to get there.
I think, you're right. I think Darnold looked like the hot new toy in the first 3 weeks. He threw for 279 against the Jets. He threw for 305 against the Saints. And then 304 against the Texans. But he had Christian McCaffrey, who rushed for 98, 72. And then the third week, he got hurt. You take Christian McCaffrey out of that offense, and suddenly it becomes one trick pony. Much more so than it was before. So, I mean, Hubbard hasn't lit the world on fire rushing. 52, 57. He did have a great game against Philadelphia, 101, 61 against Minnesota, and then 28 this past week. I mean, yeah, they came out hot, but like Jared said, in the first 3 weeks, they played one football team, and that's the New Orleans Saints, and they are still trying to find themselves. They're without Michael Thomas, and they're still trying to find themselves in all of that. The only New Orleans Saint player you can hang your hat on is Alvin Kamara. He's going to perform because he's Alvin Kamara. Everybody else in that offense, flip a coin, have no idea what's going to happen. So I think to say they went 3-0, and then they started playing football teams. They beat the Jets. Okay, is that an accomplishment? Really? I mean, the Jets have won one game this season.
Yep.
They beat the Saints. Okay, they did beat the Saints in convincing fashion, 26-7. Okay, that's impressive.
And I think that's when the bandwagon started for Carolina.
And that's when the bandwagon started. And then the following week, they beat the Houston Texans, who by that point were without everybody, right? I mean, Taylor was injured by that point, so they were playing whatever quarterback they got in the...
Davis.
Yeah, they were playing Davis Mills, who they drafted in the 5th round, 6th round. I mean, okay. Division II teams could beat them this year. You know? So it's not... Whoop-de-doo, you beat Houston. I saw a high school team
coming to get you.
I saw a high school team last week that could have beat the Texans. And then you start playing football teams. You start playing. You go to Dallas, and yeah, okay, Dallas didn't really beat the pants off you. Dallas only won by 8 points. That's not a lot. That's not a huge margin of victory. You expect something huge, but then you go and you get beat by Philadelphia. And then you lose to Minnesota. So, I mean, they're not losing in big... they're not getting blown out until this past week, where they got blown out by the Jets. Up until that point, the games were competitive. I mean, 8-point loss to Dallas. 3-point loss to Philadelphia. Overtime touchdown to Minnesota. And then the Giants blow them out of the water. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about Carolina. They started playing real football teams, and we still don't know who they are or what they are. They're Christian McCaffrey-less offense, and they're just not doing it. If Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, do they maybe win those close games? Yeah, they probably don't beat Dallas. But do they maybe beat Philadelphia and Minnesota? Maybe. I mean, the Giants aren't good. Do they beat them? Are they suddenly a team that's, 6-1 instead of 3-4? Yeah, I don't know. We can't rewrite history like that, but I think it just proves that Christian McCaffrey is such a huge part of that offense that without him, they're nothing. But with him, maybe there's something. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see as things go. And McCaffrey, they did put him on the IR. He's still we won't see McCaffrey until at least week 10, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's it.
So we'll see what happens after that. All right, but let's move on to one that actually requires some discussion. And that is a team that, heading into the season, everyone, including myself, had predicted as being a favorite to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. A favorite to win a favorite to win the Super Bowl. And now they are one game below 500. I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, who are in, what are they, 3rd place in the division?
4th.
Yeah, they're not even in a wild card spot. Right?
So they're not good. They're also 3-4. But they have lost to real teams. They have wins over Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Washington, but they have lost to Baltimore, the Chargers, the Bills, and the Titans in convincing fashion in each game.
I think it shows that the flaws are evident. The secondary's not good. They're a big problem is they don't have an outside linebacker or a true end. Well, they have one. They have Frank Clark, but they don't have one on the other side. So they're running Chris Jones as an end instead of a DT this year. And it's really leaving them exposed. He's doing as good of a job as he can as an end, but he's pretty slow. So he's not good at containing the outside, whether that's against the run of a halfback or a run of like Lamar Jackson or any kind of athletic quarterback. They can't really keep him inside, and it's really evident. And Patrick Mahomes is feeling like he has to put it all on his own shoulders, it appears. Again, I know we all got accustomed to him making hero plays and magic plays, and I'm not saying he should stop doing that because that's who Patrick Mahomes is. But what I'm saying is sometimes you just don't need to do it. You know what I mean? Like, when, here's the thing. Relying on yourself to make a magic play is one thing, but relying on yourself and then as well as an inadequate player to do that, like, you running on, like, Mahomes I watched, for example, I think it was the Robinson he threw to. He rolled out, and he should have thrown away. He could have you don't need to take a sack, but he could have took a sack. He could have thrown away. He definitely should have thrown away. But instead he saw Robinson, I believe it was, who stopped, opened up and then stopped to try to get a pass, and he just had to throw it to him. Well, there was a player on the other, this is against Tennessee, right there, ball got tipped, interception. Like, yes, you can make that throw. No one's doubting you on the run. Patrick Mahomes can make that throw. But it's not just about you. DeMarcus Robinson has to be able to make that catch. You're counting on a guy to win a jump ball situation, and the likelihood of him, one, getting that jump ball is already low, especially when you're not giving him the most perfect pass. And two, like, what's the tip balls are real. Like, what is the risk versus reward? You know what I mean? Like, I think that he's looking too hard, which is putting more pressure on his defense. He should be trying to relieve pressure from his defense, try to chew up more clock, longer possessions. That's what the Chiefs really need to do. They need to keep their defense off the field, let their defense be rested. These 3 and outs because Patrick Mahomes thinks he needs to get the touchdown the next drive is unnecessary. I think he'll understand this. I think Andy Reid and such will talk to him because, like, they were down 21-0 to the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs, I believe it was, and they came back. That offense can make things happen. So I don't know why he thinks that because a team scored and they're down 10-0 that he has to play hero ball all of a sudden. Run it, chew clock, hit some guys underneath, yada yada. But I also don't think it's just that simple. Like, those things need to happen. That'll help them. But I also think they need to make trades. But I'm not going to mention what they should trade for because we will talk about it later.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to credit an article by Sheil Kapadia. I believe I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. From The Athletic. And the article examined a lot of statistics that show some pretty big red flags for the Chiefs' defense. And not only that, but the defenses that they're facing. Okay. PFF has the offense ranked 2nd in EPA, expected points added, and 8th in points per game. Not bad, right? Overall, not that different from their 2019-2020 numbers. The defense in 2019 and 2020, 16th in EPA and 8th in points allowed. Again, they were fantastic. Now let's fast forward that defense to 2021. They are last in EPA and 27th in points allowed per game. So the defense is faltering significantly worse, even in the first 7 games of the season, than the last 2 years. The Chiefs are giving up nearly a full touchdown more per game than it did over the previous 2 years. Now that's one problem. Another problem is turnovers. Mahomes had 3 turnovers to the Titans. Now this might be an outlier because the numbers add up that this team on offense is keeping up with previous years. They're producing a first down or a touchdown on 81.2% of their series, which is number 1 in the NFL, and going 3 and out on just 16.7% of their drives. Fantastic, right? That's what you want out of your offense. I mean, 81.2% for a first down and a touchdown? Yeah, give me that. So what's killing them on offense? Turnovers. Mahomes threw 3. They got 17 on the year already, which is 5 more than any other team in the NFL. So, how are defenses managing these turnovers? 3 ways. And this is an example of them, the defenses in the NFL, figuring out how to beat the Chiefs. Because the first 2 years of Mahomes, nobody knew what to do. He was doing whatever he wanted on the field, repeatedly. You put enough of that on tape, I think teams are starting to figure it out. 3 ways defenses are managing these turnovers. 1, they're playing 14.6% more zone coverage. 2, they're playing 16% more split safety coverage. And 3, they're blitzing 6 to 9% less often. So they're moving guys back and not pressuring Mahomes. Mahomes himself is not the problem. You need to cover everything that he's looking at out there to beat him. And teams finally figured out how to do it, and we're seeing that in spades right now, and this offense just can't seem to get out of its own way because defense has caught up to it. So it's not necessarily that they're doing anything different, because on offense they're not. But defenses have started to figure them out. And then the Chiefs' defense can't, with butter. So all of these aspects coming together have led to the Chiefs really, really struggling on both sides of the ball, while the offense hasn't struggled in a way, if that makes sense. So it's a little, because the Chiefs' defense is absolute garbage right now, and the offense, if they can stop turning the ball over, then they have something they can work with. But yeah, so the numbers are not looking good in their favor. And here's another thing. Take a look at their schedule. Their next 4 games. Giants, Packers, Raiders, Cowboys. 4 weeks from now, we could be looking at a Chiefs team that is 4-7. That's no playoff team, especially in probably the second best division in the AFC right now. So things are not looking good for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2021. And I don't know if they've got enough pieces to fix it, because they're going to need to revamp a lot of things on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking at the things you've both said, I think are 100% accurate. I know we talked earlier on this show in the past about Patrick Mahomes doing too much with the ball this year. Teams are starting to figure out that he doesn't have to be looking at the receiver for the coverage to have to be there. They're staying on their man all the way through, regardless of where Pat's looking, because they know he can make that throw without actually looking at it. They know he'll make those weird high-arcing teardrops that just look like they'll never get anywhere near the receiver, only to fall right into their hands. Those are all things that are in his skill set. And teams have started to figure that out a bit more. The problem is not Pat Mahomes. I mean, even looking at his passing numbers, the teams, they're not losing games by large margins. They're losing high-scoring games by small margins. They're losing by 1 point to Baltimore, 6 points to the Chiefs. They did lose 18 to Buffalo, and obviously they lost 24 to Tennessee. So they've lost 2 games in by double digits, but the other games have been very close. One scored difference, one field goal different. I believe the Baltimore game came down to a field goal, right? That was the Justin Tucker kick, wasn't it? So I mean, it's not like they're epically losing games, because they're not. They've lost 2 games epically to arguably 2 of the strongest teams in the league. One, an offense that is just nigh on unstoppable in Tennessee, and one team that's just good all around in Buffalo. So they're not, Mahomes isn't the problem. He's throwing like 337, 330, 343, 260, 278, 272, 397, 206. Those are his yardages in each game. But now let's move on to another equally as important statistic, and that's rushing. They are not having success running the ball. They just aren't. You look at rushing, the team, Hilaire is their guy. He is their number 1. He has 65 attempts for 304 yards. That's 4.7 yards a carry. That's not good. Mahomes is their number 2. 32 attempts, 219, averaging 6.8. Damian Williams, who's been in relief, Hilaire got hurt there for a little bit, didn't he? And came in 52 for $181, averaging 3.5. They are not doing good individually in the games. Hilaire led 43, 46. There have been 2 games where the high rusher has been north of 100. And there have been 2 games where Patrick Mahomes has been the team's leading rusher. You can't do that and expect to have success, because every time a quarterback rushes the ball, most of those plays end with him getting smacked. That's not good. You know, like Lamar Jackson has succeeded doing it, and even this year he's kind of, I don't want to say taking a step back, but he's not doing it quite as often. You know, so it's not, you know, it just, the longevity of the rushing quarterback is not good. Mahomes can do it all. He's proven that. He's a renaissance man. He is, you know, if he continues as the way he's played for the last 4 years, to the rest of his career that way, he will go down as the GOAT. But he has to continue at that. And now he's looking more, I don't want to say average, but he's looking worse. Like I said, he's already at 9. Two more interceptions, and he will have combined for the previous 2 years totals. He threw 6 2 years ago and 5 last year. He hasn't thrown more than 10 picks since his first year as a starter. He's already thrown more picks than any other year as a starter, except his first year, where he finished with 12. At the current pace, he's going to finish a lot higher than 12. I hate paces, but the odds he's not going to throw 4 more picks the rest of the season are small.
He might throw those against Dallas alone.
If he throws...
Wrong secondary, bud.
I don't know. If they keep throwing the ball to that one kid, they might.
Javon, I just saw a stat about him. He leads the league in interceptions, but he's ranked like 62nd out of 120 something cornerbacks. He either gets burnt or burns them. That's what happens.
He can catch the ball if you don't run by, or if you don't run by him, he'll catch the ball on you.
Just let Tyreek. Just let have him cover Tyreek all night and see what happens. That'll be chaos.
He plays his brother, I think. No, never mind. They play the Vikings. I forgot Stefan's not there anymore. God dang it.
Nope. I don't think they have a game with Buffalo this year. Unless they make it to the Super Bowl, and who knows? Maybe. Wouldn't that be a story? He's to cover his brother in the Super Bowl. That would be epic.
They're in the same comp. Oh, wait, no. Oh my god, I did it again.
What?
I did it again. Stephon Diggs is forever a Viking.
But it just, you know, there's so much about the Chiefs that they're more normal now. Like, other teams have adapted to their style of play. Like, when Mahomes first started doing these things, nobody had ever seen a no-look pass. You know, like, nobody does it. Now everybody's doing it. You know, Aaron Rodgers throwing no-look passes. Matthew Stafford's throwing no-look passes. You know, like, it just...
Stafford's been doing it. You're crazy.
You know, it's become normal, whereas before it was... only he could do it. He was one of a kind, whereas now it's the average. You know, everybody's trying it, everybody's doing it. Not everybody's doing it successfully, but, you know, the good to great quarterbacks are doing it successfully, and it's just not as special anymore. And they don't have a run game to back him up, and the defense isn't good. It's just there's so much gone wrong in Kansas City that I'm not entirely surprised. And let's be honest, that division is exponentially tougher than we expected it to be going into the year. You know, we expected that it'd be the Chiefs and the Chargers. And the Chiefs would win the division and the Chargers might get a wild card spot. Well, now there's 3 legitimate teams that, you know, you think of still. I mean, let's be honest, the Chiefs are probably going to turn it around. You know, they may yet win the division. But they got to turn it around.
It's the Broncos division. Get out of here.
And they're running out of time to do it.
When did the Broncos win their last football game again?
We won 3 in a row this year. Have the Chiefs?
So did the Carolina Panthers. Is that what you want to hang your hat on? Remember, there was a reason why you didn't want to talk about teams that won 3 in a row and haven't won since.
You know what, bud? I can't wait for Arizona to kick the living shit out of Green Bay.
Well, you know, at the current rate, half my team's offense is going to be on the COVID list, so won't really be that big an achievement. Although if we beat the Cardinals with Adams out, then there's going to be some mad chirping going on. We add Chansky to the chat just for that chirp.
Zach hasn't had a good night's sleep in almost a week. He keeps having nightmares about Dearness Johnson.
Dearness? What did Dearness do?
Okay. I think that's it. We don't really have anything more to add on Kansas City. We covered Carolina, and we went a good long time here. So we're almost an hour in. We're actually doing pretty good here. So that's it. We're gonna break the huddle, it is time for us to sprinkle you with our Dynasty Dimes. And of course, we're going to start that off with, as always, the person you should be targeting to pick up this week. Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Zach.
I think if you are a person, especially it's bye season, and so if you're a particular person who's having your bye troubles at a position that almost is always affected by byes, and that's the tight end position, because there's like 8 starters each week, you should be going after Robert Tonyan. He had a great week last week. Like you mentioned, Davante Adams isn't playing this week. Lazard isn't playing this week. And last year, when Davante Adams was out, Robert Tonyan averaged over 20 fantasy points in those 2 weeks without Davante Adams. So I would say with the target share, I think Davante Adams has the highest target share in the NFL. So that's going to be a lot of targets that need to be distributed. And Aaron Rodgers is likely going to be passing this ball against the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm locking that down. Pick up Robert Tonyan and get yourself a good fantasy week.
That is, again, I'm going to preface this right now by saying we are recording on Wednesday nights. The game is obviously tomorrow. Slim possibility Adams still plays. Very slim. He didn't, only because he didn't actually test positive. He was placed in protocols for close contact, so he only requires 2 negative tests spaced 24 hours apart to be cleared to play. We don't know his test results yesterday. We don't know his test results today. That's not been passed along as information, so it is entirely possible that tomorrow he will be cleared and active to play. So he may be playing in tomorrow's game. So we will preface that by saying that, he may still play, and we may all look silly if we all pick Green Bay players as your target to pick up, because I'm about to pick a Green Bay player as your guy to pick up. That's Randall Cobb. He hasn't done a whole lot yet this season, but if Davante Adams is out, he is the number 1 guy. He has a history with Rodgers. He will pick up some of that target share. Of course, some of it will go to Tonyan, but Cobb will pick up a good chunk of it as a receiver. He is a guy that, obviously he has history. He still has skills. He has that rapport with Rodgers that can only help him. And I think for all of the reasons that Zach said about Tonyan also apply to Cobb, except for his statistics last season. But moving into that number 1 wide receiver position in Green Bay is an enviable position to have. I think he will have a good flex level performance this week.
Yeah, I'd say the same flex.
Mm-hmm. Jer?
I am going to go with Jacksonville wide receiver Jamal Agnew. All right, let's see. Last week against the Dolphins. No, wait. Yeah. They didn't play last week. Sorry. Okay, so 2 weeks ago. Against the Dolphins. With the win, they won the game. Jags are good. 5 receptions, 78 yards. Averaged 15.6 yards per reception. Bam. Now, he's not touchdown dependent, so, But you're getting targets and you're getting yards. And I think Jacksonville's offense, it's a work in progress, but I think it's something that's going to get better as the year goes on. So, he's a what-the-heck flex guy. There's an upside there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Wait, no, go ahead.
No, I thought you were done. You finished. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously become a useful piece in the offense the last few weeks. 6 receptions against the Titans. So, but the only caveat is he's not a touchdown guy yet. So, if you're looking for, some easy PPR points, throw him in there in your flex and, you might have something there. And he's probably going to be...
If you're in redraft, since we gave you 2 Packers and Johnny brought up the Davante Adams thing, here's a throw-in. If you would like to go and redraft and get someone, Bateman is floating around in a bunch of redraft leagues. He's gotten 6 targets in each of his 2 weeks since coming back. They're on bye. He'll likely be worked more into the offense. That Baltimore offense is just looking scarier and scarier by week. And when you're just looking for a depth and a flex position, especially through all these bye weeks and such, having a guy like Bateman seeing 6 targets in an explosive offense is, I think he's a high risk guy to have, but he still has a floor as well.
Just more on that Jamal Agnew. 0 offensive touchdowns in 4 years. 0.
Yeah, he's a special teams guy, too.
He's a special team guy. He has 4 special teams touchdowns. So, I mean, he may bounce out for one of those. You never know. But 0 receiving touchdowns in 4 years.
He's taken over the like glitch role or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? That utility role.
Yeah,
in Jacksonville. They've been because of the DJ Chark injury. They moved Laviska Shenault outside a lot now to take those snaps, which has left Jamal Agnew to take the Laviska Shenault role.
His snap count has definitely gone up. You know, in week 4, 14% snap count. Week 5, 63. Week 6, 59. You know, assuming he keeps that just a bit north of 50% snap count, maybe a low-end flex, maybe. I mean, but that's the whole point. These are those guys that are on the waiver wire that, you know, when you're in your bye week hell.
You gotta consider that, man. He's gonna get rushing attempts. He's got that role.
I mean, he's had two this season.
Yeah, well, he wasn't in, like I said, until the DJ Chark injury.
Well, that's since then. He had 1 in week 4 and 1 in week 5 and none in week 6. Obviously, none in week 7 because that was their bye week. So he has 2 in 3 weeks.
Don't you take away Jared's pick.
I'm not taking away his pick. I'm saying, like, you know, in a deep league, it's a good pick, and it makes sense. You know, he's rostered very low. I mean, in redraft, he is on 3% of all rosters. That's redraft, obviously. But I can't imagine his numbers.
If it's a bye week and you need a guy who's going to see some targets, there's worse picks out there.
And if you do those daily drafts where like you spend the money, he's perfect. He's a steal.
Quite possibly, yeah. 34% in dynasties on Sleeper, because that is the main platform for our fantasy league. So he's definitely most likely available in whatever format you're playing in. So if you're in desperate need, pick him up. Who knows? All right.
Khalil Raymond if he's available, but he's kind of skyrocketed the last.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that was 3 weeks ago, pal. This week he's probably not available. It's a Wednesday night. What are you watching? The Raptors game?
Yeah, well, I haven't watched most of it. I just turned over and had it on, and Fred hit a nice 3.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to in Dynasty Dimes we tend to
hit a nice 3, but that's at the bar.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good content for.
And that's when he punches above his weight class. All right. I just realized Kate usually watches these shows, so.
Yeah. Hi, babe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's you're way out of his. You know, he outkicked his coverage a big time on you.
Yep.
Don't kill me. All right. We usually do our pickup and then one topic of discussion. So it's week 8. When do you give up on an underperforming star? That doesn't necessarily mean when do you trade them, but when do you give up on them being your every week starter when their person is someone of value?
If I believe it's on them, if you know what I mean. Like if I think they're just genuinely not performing and they don't appear to be that guy, then I think it's fair roughly around the playoff push if you're making a run to start, pushing them out of your lineups. But if it's something like your quarterback is hurt for that team and he might be coming back in a couple weeks, 3 weeks or so, then you don't give up. You run it. You hold on tight. But again, if it appears that it's him, right around now, around week 8, 9.
Jerry, what about you?
I think context is important. Like, okay, let's look at Robert Woods as an example of this. Van Jefferson and Cooper Kupp are obviously favorite targets right now. So target share is down. I mean, Woods had, maybe two good weeks. And you're seeing him in your lineup and you're thinking, well, shit, his projections look good. I mean, he's performed in the past. What's missing? Something's not right here. He's an important part of the offense. Well, yes, but there's a new quarterback. He's got Cooper Kupp as his favorite target, obviously. You know, nobody's touching that ceiling. So it's automatically cutting into whatever production you can get out of the guy. So I think that's a huge effect of it, that you look at the offense and you see a windfall effect. Hey, things are trickling down and my guy's not getting what not even what he should, but what would help my fantasy team, essentially. And it's hard because you're an eternal optimist in fantasy. You connect with these players, you got your guys, and you hate the idea of coming to terms with them underperforming to the point where, okay, this guy's going to ride my bench for the next 5 weeks because he's why I'm losing matchups week after week. And it's a hard decision to make, because what if you bench him and all of a sudden he goes for 15 points the following week, and then you're, kicking yourself in the ass.
OBJ last week.
Yeah, right? He comes back from injury, he's going to start killing it, and he falls on the sideline and hurts his shoulder and puts up, 3 points? And that was even with Jarvis Landry not doing much. I mean, you did not expect Cleveland to still have such a strong rushing game after both their running backs are out, and they just run all over the Broncos, and there's with a backup quarterback. I mean, where's the fantasy play in that offense last week?
I hate it.
There's zero consistency based on previous knowledge coming into that game. I mean, do you play the backup running back? Sure you do. In a flex. I mean, you're not thinking he's going to run away with this and put up, whatever he put up, probably like 30 points. But, yeah, you just got to know when and hope you make the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think you both kind of hit it. This is right around the time when you kind of start to, I don't want to say crap or get off the pot, but this is the time where you're getting close to your trade deadlines, where teams are starting to establish, are they making a push or are they falling behind? Who's your guy? Who's not your guy? Long term, what's their effect going to be on your roster, whether or not you start or sit them? And of course, there are guys who you're going to regret sitting guys every week. It's going to happen. There's a reason why a lot of leagues give out the underperformer awards. We do. We call attention to the guys that performed on your bench because we like to poke fun at people for doing that. And then you have that, man, if I'd have just played this guy, my record would be this, or I would have got that win if it weren't for this guy. We all look back on those, and sometimes they're used as, how to insult people. I mean, here we are 4 years later, I think, and Zach still likes to point out the week I refused to trade for a quarterback that cost me the playoffs. That was 4 years ago. But he still brings it up, because it's a real thing. It happens. Those are the things we make fun of people for. When you lose the playoffs because you forgot to start a player, or you benched the wrong guy, or you picked up the wrong
names
guy.
On that one.
We've all done it. Everybody's done it. It's a reality of fantasy football. If you don't make mistakes, there's no such thing as a perfect fantasy GM. There's not. You're always going to make mistakes, even if you set the perfect lineup. I mean, look at this past week. Was it Corey in Dynasty set the perfect lineup award? Only got 82 points.
Yep.
So, like, sometimes you can have the perfect lineup and still stink. It's just going to happen. But then there are other weeks where your bench is going to put up, 150 points, and you're just going to throw your arms up and be like, what the just happened?
Well, and that's why best ball can be a fun format to play, because then you get the best of whatever your entire team puts up. And then it's a better gauge of what your entire roster is, rather than, and I mean, there's a benefit to that, but also there's a benefit from making the right decision or the wrong decision. So
best ball is for rookies. It's for amateurs. It's just
sorry to any people that watch this and play basketball.
Jerry's right. It is a fun way to play. And if we ever had like a fun league where we just do crazy things like that, like a vampire league or a best ball league or something like that, sure, those are great leagues to have for fun. But I don't want to be in a vampire with a high stakes, payout, because that's crazy. I don't want to be in a best ball league. I don't.
I mean, if you're a vampire near a high stake, I'd be kind of worried too.
Boy, I hope you got all those out of your system.
Blue light makes his face look like he's turning into a vampire.
I mean, if I come in the wrong way, I can go real vampire. Like, just get close to one light or another light, and it just completely washes out my face like a vampire.
Yep.
But I digress. That's the beauty of lights. You move the wrong way, and suddenly your face disappears. But I digress. Now, those leagues are fun, for fun. But they're not, they're not where you're not slaving over the waiver wire in a best ball.
No.
You're not. It is what they're fun leagues to play for fun, but they're not. They're not where I invest my time. That we put. We talk about fantasy football a lot, and that's because we deal with it a lot. It's year round for us in this league. There is no off season for us, but we're hardcore like that. Some of us disappear from February to July, but then there's those of us who are still scrounging the waiver wire in the middle of July, just hoping to get lucky. So it is what it is. There's degrees, there's levels. Everybody has them. Alright, that's going to do it for this week's Dynasty Dimes. It is now time for the 2-minute drill. Now, normally we'll do things like give out our MVPs, which if we were this week, I'd give it to Cincinnati and Burrow and Jamar, because they were amazing this week. But we're not doing that, and we're not giving up our what the fruitcakes this week, because we have other things to talk about. And like we said, it's the final week before the trade deadline, so we're going to play a game of go or stay. We're going to name names. We might give some statistics about the player, depending on whether or not Zach has some handy, because he took the 2-minute drill and decided he was going to make notes for this segment. So, he came.
I'm making notes now.
It's
only taken like 10 episodes.
That's right.
No, this is progress. We need more of this.
Maybe next week you'll make notes on the correct segments.
Will.
But I digress. It's the 2-minute drill. It's go or stay. We'll talk about a player and whether or not they should get traded, or whether or not they should stay where they are. If they get traded, we might name 1 or 2 destinations where we think they should go, or which teams would most benefit from acquiring their services. Alright, the first player on our list is wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, Allen Robinson. Zach, I believe you have statistics for him, or stats, or something for him.
Trade him. He's got 250 yards on the year and only 1 touchdown. Hasn't really done much. Barely been targeted. But I think that's just a creation of that terrible offense, and I don't even have to get into how many ways it's terrible. It's just very, very bad. So I think if he was to get shipped to the Chiefs or the Raiders or the Chargers, basically the division of my Broncos, it would very much benefit him and any one of those teams.
He's also in a contract year, isn't he?
Second. Yes, he is. I think anything around a second
franchise?
or third. Yeah, he got franchised, yes.
Yeah.
So he's in a contract year.
Yeah. He did get franchised for next year, just this year. I think he would help them. I think his price tag is probably a third, maybe a second, but they would probably have to also send a pick back of some sort. But I think he should go.
Jer?
It would benefit him and the Bears if he left, because he's not getting anything in Chicago. That entire team is a dumpster fire right now. Nothing is working. They're probably shipping the management out at the end of the year, if not sooner. He just needs a fresh start somewhere else. He's a tremendous player, but he has been stuck in so many bad offenses since Jacksonville, really, that he just hasn't been able to show what he can do. Go sign somewhere on a 1-year deal and prove that you are a top-tier wide receiver, and then cash in, and, off to the races.
Where do you think who should be targeting him?
Maybe the Giants. I mean, everyone else is on IR on that team.
Okay. I mean, that's an odd choice for a selling team to buy, but okay. I mean, I guess I've heard stranger things. Obviously, for all the reasons we said, he needs to be traded. He needs a new team. He is too talented a player to be stuck in that dumpster fire. And moving somewhere else will give him a chance, whether he moves into a number 1 slot or a number 2 slot or something of that sort.
He can go to Las Vegas. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be fun.
Somewhere where he has a chance to show himself off this offseason. Because he's not getting franchise tagged. Chicago has ruined his chances. Not that he'd want that, but nobody's going to franchise tag him again because the price tag would be way too high. And, he will probably do a show me, prove it deal somewhere where he can be the number 1 guy in an offense where he will have a chance to prove himself to get that big contract that he should have already gotten, that he earned the first time around that never came through, and then he ended up in Chicago of all places. So I definitely do think he needs to get moved, and I think, like Zach said, any of those AFC West teams really need him, because the only other team that really, I think, could use a wide receiver 2 type guy is Green Bay, and there is not a snowball's chance in hell that Chicago is ever going to do anything that could possibly even remotely help the Green Bay Packers.
Speaking of, can we switch the order then of how you're going to name these guys? Because I have a guy who Green Bay should go after, and he's on this list.
I mean, if you have a specific order you want to go on, I guess. I mean, it's probably the same guy I was going to say should go to Green Bay.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying I don't think he was next on the list. I can't remember, though.
Probably not.
But
I mean, I'm okay with jumbling around, I guess, if you want to. I'll just have to keep track of who we do and who we don't do. I think we're only jumping one person. Yeah, we're only jumping one person.
I think I have him swapped out because I don't think he should go to the Raiders because they have him basically twice almost, like with Brian Edwards and Henry Ruggs. They have like the burner guy, more specifically Henry Ruggs. Mm-hmm. So I think the Raiders are a better fit for Allen Robinson because of his size.
Yep.
Though I think the Packers are a fantastic pick for Cooks. Him sitting opposite of Devontae Adams, he would essentially take the Valdez-Scantling role, while being a guy who has been very good at that role, not just like average or kind of good. Like Brandon Cooks is one of the best at that role there is in the league. As long as he's healthy, he burns people, he gets open, he catches deep balls, he gets touchdowns. That's what that guy does. I know he's not getting them this year, but it's Davis Mills throwing him the ball. It's not fair. He still has, though, with Davis Mills / Tyrod Taylor, kinda, for a game throwing him the ball. He has 502 yards on the year and only the 1 touchdown. But 502 yards with probably the worst quarterback in the league to throw you the ball right now, that's pretty good. So
likely also being the most covered guy on the field.
Exactly. You put him
there's nobody else to cover, really.
Exactly. And then you put him opposite of Devontae Adams on the field in a system that is perfect for him, in the role that is perfect for him. Well, he never has to see double coverage, really. Like, I don't know if people remember, but he was very successful on the Saints. He had the same success on the Rams. Like, he's got years of this. This is what he does. He is on pace for another 1,000-yard season. I'm not quite sure. You guys can check, but I believe that's either his 5th or his 6th 1,000-yard season on his career if he gets it. Like, It's just not. He's an undervalued player, and I kind of get why he's undervalued because it seems like every 4 or 5 weeks he gets a concussion. But I think Brandon Cooks is. I also have the Chiefs and Chargers, but they were my thing. But I really, really, really think he's a perfect fit for the Packers.
Yeah, there's only been 2 years where he hasn't, in his entire career, where he hasn't got more than 1,000. It was 2014 and 2019.
That's what I mean. Like, he's a very underrated guy. Like, I get it. He gets hurt, and the concussion scares are there. So I understand why you can't just throw a first for him or something. But, like, to pretend that this guy, if healthy, will not help a team chase the championship is just crazy. Especially if he's your number 2.
We do talk about him getting hurt a lot. Whoa! Speaking of vampire syndrome from before, I just had it there for a second. He does get hurt a lot, but they're not long term. As far as missing games, he's played full seasons in 4 of 7. He's missed 1 game in 1 season and 2 games in 1 other season. His lowest was 10. That was his rookie year. He only played 10 games in 2014. Every other year, he's played at least 15 games. Prior to this year, obviously.
He's a talented player who knows how to master his role.
And he's got ridiculous yards per catch. North of 10 yards every year. Those are good numbers.
Deshaun Jackson. He's like a Deshaun Jackson type guy. I actually think he's a better player than Deshaun Jackson, but
he's more consistent than Jackson. Yeah,
I agree.
So I definitely agree with you both that he needs to be traded and that he should go to Green Bay because the price isn't going to be too big. Maybe a third, maybe a fourth, just because of his history, and that just seems to be his price. Whenever he gets traded around, it's for a mid-round.
That's a steal. Like if
it's very
an
much
understandable price, but for the talent you're going to get, that is such a valuable and fair deal to take for you.
Yep.
Like, if the Packers don't try to do it, I don't see Aaron Rodgers there at the end of this. I already don't really see it, but if they do not go get him a weapon, while there are some weapons on the trade block, while something like what is currently occurring, where they don't have anybody, this potentially, I guess I forgot about Devontae White, potentially don't really have an option to throw the ball to in a very important week, I think this will be, the icing on the cake. It's going to be a very telling week in football this next 7 days.
Oh, absolutely. It will. Jerry, you didn't comment on Cooks.
Well, if he has COVID now, he's for sure going to the Packers this week.
Where did COVID come from? I don't know.
He fits right in that wide receiver room.
Oh. Okay, does Cooks actually have COVID though?
No.
Okay, I was like, did I miss some news?
No.
Okay, so I guess to specify, it has been reported today by Steve Weiss on NFL Network that Devontae is not traveling with the team, so he will not be in uniform tomorrow night.
Robert Tonyan. Pick up Robert Tonyan if he is available. Pick that man up.
But pick up the strength coach because they need somebody to catch the ball.
Okay.
They catch something in Green Bay apparently.
Ouch. That's 2 players. Okay, 2 players. That's it.
And a coordinator or something, some coach.
Yeah, the defensive coordinator. That's still less than a lot of other teams.
I know.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. Xavier Howard, the cornerback currently in Miami. Should he stay or should he go?
I have he should stay. 1, Miami isn't exactly the prize place for free agents at this point, especially talented ones. So, and at that position as well, cornerback is a hard position to get. Now, don't get me wrong, if they get offered a first for Xavier Howard, goodbye. Like, Xavier has to go. But I'm assuming his market's going to be a second or less. And at that price tag, I don't think he's worth getting rid of, especially when you can probably ship him next year for equally the same amount of talent while getting to keep him for another year. I understand he's the most expensive cornerback in the league, but like I previously just said, they're not exactly a destination. And another reason is he's also on the books next year if they trade him or cut him, but trade him would be the option for $9.5 million. So you're not really like you're gonna gain money, but like you're not gonna be able to use that money to put in to your team properly to change that. So unless it's like the best they're probably going to get is a late second for him because a bad team isn't trading for him right now. You know, it's only going to be a contender. So what, you're going to get like a second from the Bucks or something? And I just don't think that's worth it to get rid of a player that could very much help you. And to add more to it, I also don't think it's Brian Flores, right? That's the head coach there. I don't believe he's in a rush to go make his secondary worse when his job could be on the line. So I'm not saying he has all the power. I understand general managers and stuff do that stuff, but he definitely has a voice, and he's going to be pushing towards keeping Xavier Howard. And I think there's other reasons that I just previously said as well. So I say no go.
Jer?
Yeah, I think they're going to keep him. They've got some problems on the team. The offense isn't the greatest, but the defense is usually the bright spot. That secondary is pretty good. So I think, and didn't he just sign in the offseason a new contract?
Well, they restructured.
They restructured, yeah.
To give him more money.
Exactly. So I don't think what they could get right now would be worth A, losing him, B, paying what they're going to have to pay in the future. It just doesn't equal out. And especially if Miami is in talks for a certain other player.
We'll talk about that player later.
Yeah. So, do you really want to sell the cow right now? If that's your end goal? I don't think...
Though, I could see that guy, like Xavier Howard, being part of a deal for that said player, because salary is a factor in this. So if they need a salary filler, that is a lot of salary they could throw in. So though I said I think they should keep him, if that other player now becomes a factor who they're going to receive, then by all means I think Xavier could be
Rip him off. Yeah.
I think, as I kind of tipped at it, I think this is sort of a double-edged thing. I can see him both staying and going, depending on the situation. Could he be a part of a trade for that player? Maybe. That's a possibility that I hadn't quite entertained, but, I looked at it more of a stat of that does help you build up a defense while obviously drastically improving your offense. So it's a good... Those are two guys to build off of, and a good core to build off of right there. So I could see keeping him for that. But at the same time, if a team wants to offer them a blowaway deal for Xavier Howard, something closer to what the Jags got for Jalen Ramsey, if somebody wants to throw that kind of, I don't either. But I'm saying, like, if somebody wants to do that, then sure, you make that deal.
28, isn't he? I think Xavier's 28 almost.
I don't know.
He was an older rookie when he came in the league.
Yeah, I don't know offhand, but you're probably right. He is definitely an older, not to say old, but, he is definitely older.
Older than Jalen was when Jalen traded.
Yeah.
Jalen was only like 24.
But if somebody wants to overpay...
Yeah, 100%.
To help offset the cost of that other player that we're talking about, as far as draft capital goes, they'd kind of be crazy not to sort of make that a wash. But, it would have to balance out their books that way.
They can get a first for him. If they can get a first for him, 100%. Because right now, look, Xavier's good and all, but if you can get a first, you can basically try to use that first on an offensive lineman or some sort to help that offense, and that will be huge. But I think for a late second, you're not really getting much.
All right, let's move.
Get good players.
Well, let's go to our next guy. He is also a defensive back, and he plays for your Denver Broncos, Kyle Fuller.
Bye. Bye, Fuller. The Broncos have lost 4 games in a row. Our schedule is not easy. We're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. That's just a fact. Fuller's on the last year of his deal. He's not going to be returning. He has value right now. The market exists. We just talked about how...
What just happened? All right, folks, we're dealing with some technical issues here on the... yeah, we'll work it out here.
He's back.
Yeah, we lost for a second. All right, sorry about that, folks. If you're watching video, then you'll see we just lost Jer for a second and saw our screen capture of our screen capture. Nope. And if you've been listening, then you heard me and Zach dealing with the French fries that occurred there. But we're all back. Everything's good. This is fine. Everything's fine. The inside handoff is fine. Zach, you were saying Kyle Fuller.
We were saying Xavier Howard isn't likely to get traded for those reasons we said. So at this point, I think Fuller is the best defensive back / cornerback, whatever you want to consider him. He is a corner, but so I think he demands the market. And I think if the Broncos can snag a late second from a team, I'm not saying they will, and if we do, we will likely have to send like a fourth and a fifth back or something along those lines. But if we can do that for Fuller when we have depth at that position, like we have Bryce Callahan, we have Roby, we have, everyone talks about Surtain, but they don't bring up Ojemudia, who was a rookie cornerback last year on our team that started the majority of our games and played fairly well. Like, he was by no means a bad player. And he's sitting there at our number 5 cornerback, really just not being used. And we have a couple safeties like that we want to get more time on the field with named Schnott. I always pronounce his name wrong. I'm not even going to try again. But we have a few. And there's just not really space for Kyle. Like, if we were making a run, if it looked like we were a Super Bowl team, depth at that position is just a good thing to have. You know what I mean? Injuries happen and you just want it. But at this point, even if we get a third, ship him out. But I would love a second.
You always love more than that. Jer, what do you think?
I think Zach brings up a good point. He's probably going to be the player at that position. As far as teams that might be in the market for him, though, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe, what, Kansas City?
The Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah?
Yeah, you guys could use a cornerback right now.
I mean, we just got rid of Jalen Smith not long ago, but he was underperforming and way too expensive anyways. So if we could get it,
and he's a linebacker.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Wait, did Green Bay sign him?
Yes, they did.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah.
Has he played?
That was quick, wasn't it?
It was very quick. Yeah, it was very quick. He was only on the market for, I think, a day and a half before he signed the contract. I don't know if he played last week or not.
Interesting.
But they did sign him.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I was hoping the Broncos would, since we have a million injured linebackers.
8 was it last checked?
Yeah, 8.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't even know you could have that many on a roster.
Right? Like, what is happening?
They're just pulling linebackers out of nowhere and they're getting hurt.
We're trading for people I don't even know exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We talked about Young a couple weeks ago. He was the guy that couldn't sack Kyler Murray.
All right. I definitely think Kyle Fuller is going to be shown the door. Where he go? I'm being generous when I say he's going to be shown the door. Yeah, he's going to be shown the door. He's going to be helped move out. But I think Zach's right when he says he's the most. I don't say expendable, but he is the most expendable of your defensive backs, and you do have some good depth at that position, and there's definitely value to be had for Kyle Fuller, who's going to be in the market for him. I mean, we said some interesting names. I think Tampa Bay is definitely going to be knocking on that door, but I also think Green Bay might. We do need some help in that. We do need some help as far as defensive backs go. We hit the market for linebackers. Finally remembering that free agency exists, signing Jalen Smith and Whitney Merciless. So Yeah, now if we can make trades that help us, bring in Brandon Cooks, bring in Kyle Fuller, and hey, we could be a contender. I mean, we do have that ability. It certainly helps us in the stretch. So, I think Green Bay, Tampa, and Dallas. There's going to be a lot of teams interested in this guy. Let's move on to our next name. He has been discussed an awful lot. He's not nearly as old as I thought he was either. Marlon Mack.
Ooh. Yes, I think I don't think he's a Colt come after trade deadline. I think if they're going to try to trade him, hopefully they can snag a 6th or 7th. But either way, I think he's cut if they don't trade him. I could be wrong. I 100% could be wrong, but that's my belief.
He's consistent, and Houston needs a running back.
They just got rid of Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I know. Ingram was probably their best running back.
I don't think they're going to go trade for one.
Yeah, that'd be kind of silly. But I definitely think he's going to get traded. Whether he gets cut if they don't trade him, I don't know. Maybe in the offseason they'll cut him.
No, he's a free agent.
Is he free agent? Yeah, then they'd probably just let the contract run out if they can't trade him. Just in the off chance that something happens to Taylor or any of their running backs. But I do think somebody's going to take a shot at him because the price is going to be very cheap. Who's it going to be? I don't know. Before yesterday, I might have said Baltimore, New Orleans, I guess. San Francisco could definitely use it. But then if he did that, he'd tear his ACL. So I don't know if he wants that for his career.
That's what happens when you walk in the door in Baltimore.
That's true. Baltimore's probably no better, but Baltimore's actually got a shot at the playoffs, so he could maybe have a run there. There's definitely going to be a lot of teams interested. Where he ends up, who knows. Next guy, Hayden Hurst. Now extremely expendable tight end in Atlanta.
If they can get a good offer or trade, but I think basically what you said about Marlon Mack is how I feel about Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, I think as long as the offer is there, but I mean, he's extremely expendable, like you said. So, do they just keep him around for if they can't ship him out?
It doesn't ever hurt to have a second tight end that can receive.
Yeah.
True enough.
Run at a single back.
I mean, Pitt's really just kind of taken off, so obviously he's not going to be, the guy in Atlanta.
Say that again? I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
Yeah. Pitts has taken off, yes.
Pitts is the Pitts.
100 yards here, 100 yards there, yeah.
Feels good, because the Jamar thing was scary.
But I think he's a good hand to have. So, and he's only suddenly expendable because nobody really, outside of Zach, nobody really expected Pitts to really take off this early.
I don't know about that. I mean, he was that good.
I mean, people were saying he's going to be fucking, tight end number 3, for the year.
He still might be.
2. But I just think he's living up to realistic expectations. So you take Hurst, who still has value. He's a good tight end. You got to find a willing buyer. I mean, Arizona may have been a place, but they just picked up. Who'd they grab?
Ertz.
Yeah. So, I mean, the market for a tight end who's a backup right now is kind of dry, really. I can't think of anywhere that.
Not going to get much. A 7 at best.
Yeah. So, I mean, is he really going to improve his role somewhere else than where he's at right now?
New Orleans could use a tight end of some sort.
Yeah?
If I was New Orleans, I'd trade a 7th for him.
They do have Taysom hopefully coming back in the next week or two. Not that he's a tight end.
Receiving tight end. Like, I'm not saying he can't catch a ball, but Taysom does most of his work with his legs, not, running routes and shit.
Yeah.
Like, he blocks and he runs. He doesn't really catch much. What's Taysom got, like 20 catches in a year or something?
Yeah, he's not good at all, period. He's never going to be...
He hasn't gotten COVID either.
He's never going to be the starter at any position. He spent too long trying to be a jack of all trades, and he's a master of none. That's the Taysom Hill story.
Yeah, the thing is, when he does have the ball in his hands, he's a fucking problem. So, oops, sorry for swearing, but yeah, he's a problem when he has the ball in his hands. So, like, he's going to have a spot in this league for a couple more years.
I mean, he definitely, there's potential for him to be a gadget player, but he's not going to be, you don't build teams around gadget players. Gadget players aren't remembered, long term. They don't have Hall of Fame careers. They're just gadget players. They live out their usefulness, and then they're shown the door. And the door is approaching faster than not for him. But we're not talking about Taysom Hill. We're talking about Hayden Hurst, who I don't think actually gets traded because he is the security blanket to the security blanket. If something happens to Kyle Pitts, then Atlanta knows they have a capable tight end in Hayden Hurst. And right now, that's kind of what they need. They need assets who can perform at least half decently, or else who's Matt Ryan going to have to throw the ball to himself? And that's
throw those touchdowns somewhere.
That's what Hayden Hurst represents to that team. He's the security blanket to the security blanket. All right, next guy, we got two more names. One of them is backup extraordinaire / starter extraordinaire / Super Bowl winner / Big Dick Nick Foles.
I honestly can't care if he gets traded. I have zero opinion on this. He's such an irrelevant player to me. I can't even stress that enough.
Yeah, I think every bit of buzz or interest around him died when he just couldn't perform in Chicago, was it, where he ended up?
That's where he is now, yeah.
Yeah, so he's just not the guy, anywhere. And he lucked into the position where he was in, and he played a good game. And I think people know what they're getting with him, and his value is in the toilet since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think he's as relevant as the Joe Flacco trade that just happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd argue he's more relevant than that simply because he has the cachet more recently than Joe Flacco does.
I guess, but they're both Super Bowl champions that never really played well in the regular season. Have one good run. Yeah,
but Nick's success in the playoffs is more recent. Right, like it's still fresh.
Nick had the better season between them too. To be honest, if you look at the regular season, Nick has had the best regular season.
I mean, should somebody trade for him? I mean, yeah. I mean, I'd say like a conditional 7th if you're a team that has no strong backup making a push. But
yeah, that's what I mean. Like
I don't really know who fits that bill.
Not even no.
Even not them, because then you're pretty. If you do that, Green Bay is saying Jordan Love is not the guy. We were not. We were wrong.
Like what? Miami? Like.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe Dallas, just to have somebody
Tampa?
behind Dak.
Tampa?
Yeah, when you're trying to make that push. I don't even no Tampa, because when you replace Tom Brady, a scrub can do it. Because
no, you've been Kyle Trask right now. You don't want Kyle Trask.
Okay, I'll grant you that, but they just signed like Brian Hoyer or something.
Yeah.
Well, Hoyer's on the Patriots.
Is he still on the Patriots?
Yeah.
Tom would just pick up the phone. Tom would just pick up the phone and call up Uncle Bobby and be like, "I need my Hoyer back."
I mean, speaking of
2 firsts.
Yeah.
No, Kraft would be like, "I don't want this guy anymore. Fire him. He's cut."
There's a big trade that just went down. Who was it here? Quarterback Craig Morton just got traded to the Giants.
Are you playing with me? Is that a real human being?
Yeah, it says here right before the. Oh, never mind. That's the 1974 trade deadline. Sorry, I'm using Internet Explorer. It just took a while for me to get it.
Wow.
Oh my god, man! Are we done with this yet? He's just ruined.
That's
everything
awful.
That
we only have one. We only have one more guy to talk about, and that's the big one. He is the guy we alluded to earlier. We didn't want to say his name because we knew we were saving him. He's the last guy to talk about. He is Deshaun Watson. I don't need to tell you what position he plays. I don't even need to tell you what team he's on because it's obvious if you don't know, you're a bum.
So what I've seen at this point, the Dolphins are the only runners for him.
Yeah, he's the only team that waived his. To
this point,
yeah.
He'd be willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to Miami and nowhere else. To this point.
From what I've heard is there's more possibility that this happens in the off-season than at trade deadline. Want to run it out?
Yeah, I think it's because Miami wants some type of confirmation of what they're getting. Not so much with Watson, but surrounding Watson. Like,
as far as his eligibility status,
yeah, is he going to be eligible? Can he play? Is there suspension? They don't know what they're getting with that package, so they want to know. Have an idea of, okay, this is what we're getting. This is when we can realistically expect to put him on the field.
Which is also why I don't want to hear too much about the Miami stuff, because unless they're just going to make a move without knowing that information, you know what I mean? Just say, screw it, we're trying it anyways. As soon as that information becomes privy to them, it'll become privy to everybody else, and then they won't be the only team in it anymore. That's the thing. The only reason they're the team in it, because they're the only team sniffing around right now. But then they're like, oh, well, we don't have enough info. And then the Broncos are like, well, yeah, that's why we're not interested. It's because we don't have enough info. And there's a bunch of other teams that are in that same boat. They're like, yeah, that's the same reason why we're not offering deals. It's because we don't have the info. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as soon as this stuff comes out and the people are like, well, he has been found innocent, yada, yada, yada. We'll just say that happens. It is no longer just the Miami Dolphins. Let's be realistic. Immediately, Chicago will be calling. Immediately, the Jets will be calling. Immediately, the Broncos will be calling. And insert a few other teams that will be calling, because there are a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, and he's amazing. So, it's like, you take everything with a grain of salt, I think, right now with Watson. Unless Miami's, like I said before, unless they're about to make some bold move, where they're going to trade 3 picks and some players without having any idea, he's not going anywhere, and they won't be the only team in the market.
I think the market is kind of set right now by Deshaun himself. We don't know which other teams have sniffed around. For all we know, all of those teams have, made inquiries, and it's been made clear to them, yeah, Deshaun doesn't want to go to you, so there's nothing to talk about here. And
everything we heard in the offseason was he had a few teams on his list. I highly doubt those teams disappeared.
I think to this point it's down to Miami. I think they're saying that's the only team he's agreed to waive it to. Now, could that be that's the only team he's agreed to waive it to that's actually calling about him? I don't know. We don't know. We'll never know true specifics. So, I mean, could you be correct if the league comes out and says if Deshaun Watson is traded, he will be eligible to play immediately? Because right now he is eligible to play. But that's something we're not forgetting. It's not the league that's keeping him off the field. It's Houston. It's the Texans. It's that organization as a whole that is keeping him off the field, which has really kept the league from being forced to make a decision.
It's like a mutual agreement.
I mean, a little bit. It's kind of, we're not doing it so the league doesn't have to act. If he gets traded to Miami, then the league has to act, because Miami's going to want to put him on the field right away. They're not going to want to sit him and not do it, because if they make this trade, Tua is going back to Houston. I don't think there's any two ways about this. Houston does not make that trade without getting Tua. And if you do that and you're doing it without having a starting quarterback in the mix, who's their starting quarterback then? Who's their backup? They don't really have that. So,
yeah, true.
I mean, I think right now it's sort of, I saw today by some reports, and I can't recall whom specifically, but I know at least one of them was direct from Bleacher Report. I don't know who the source was to them, if it was one of their in-house guys or one of the NFL Network guys or who it was, that had said that terms had been agreed to by Miami and Houston. Now, I don't know what the holdup is. Maybe now somebody's put in a sort of a backdoor call to the league saying, if this deal happens, what is your response? And that will determine whether or not they make the trade now or wait till the offseason. But I think at this point it's Miami or nobody, because I think it's too late in the process for somebody else to get in on it now. Because here we are 6 days away from the trade deadline. It's too late for somebody else to come in now, I think.
I just don't think it happens at the deadline. That's just my theory. That's why.
I think if it's going to happen, it's probably going to be this weekend. It might even be as early as tomorrow. being Friday or Saturday or Sunday, Monday. This is not going to be a last-minute deal, I don't think, that happens on Tuesday. So I think we'll know about this in advance of the games this Sunday. So, I mean, we'll just have to see. I think it's Miami or nobody. So it's either Miami or nobody. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for the 2-minute drill. It is now time to move on to Pick'ems. Obviously, we didn't have a show last week, so we didn't give you our results from 2 weeks ago, and we didn't do our actual live picks for last week's. However, we did make our picks. We made our picks in our group chat, so our picks were made before Sunday, so everything is still on the level, legit, and we'll go through. We'll start with Week 6, give you our quick results for that, where yet again we had a tie on the top of the leaderboard. Jer and myself both picked 11 of 14 games correctly in Week 6. We each only got 3 games incorrectly. We'll burn through this, buddy. Zach, you hit 10. Last week, not quite so friendly for one of us. We're down to 13 games on the week last week. Jer and Zach, you tied the week at 9. I came in at 7. I don't know specifics, but I think, Jer, that either puts you 1 point back of me or ties me for the season lead so far. We'll do another update. How far
back am I?
Well,
you're under 500, you bum.
No, he's definitely above 500, but I think you're still a few... You stayed par with me for most of the weeks when you've been on top, and you kind of fell behind off the jump. So let's get right into this. Let's do this really quick. Let's burn through these.
4 weeks in a row? Who else has done that?
Shut up. Well, no, he hasn't, because he tied with me a couple weeks ago when you lost. So we have 2 teams on bye this week, Las Vegas and Baltimore. Let's jump into our picks, guys. Speedy, no discourse on whom we think is going to win or lose because, because we don't need to specify reasons on here why we're going to just burn through the picks like Taco Bell after dinner.
We're like 3 hours into this episode.
1 hour, 50 minutes. We'll be at about 2 hours by the time we're done. All right, Thursday night game, Green Bay, Arizona. God, I hate to do this, but with Devontae Adams out, Arizona. Okay, Arizona for the board. Carolina, Atlanta. Atlanta. Zach?
Atlanta.
Jer?
Atlanta.
Miami, Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Okay, Buffalo across the boards. San Francisco, Chicago. Both teams suck, but I'm going to take San Francisco.
Yeah, San Fran.
Jer?
San Francisco. They cost me $55 on... Yeah, they can go away.
Cleveland at Pittsburgh. I'm going to take Cleveland. Zach?
I'm going to take Pittsburgh.
Jer?
That run game. I think Cleveland is going to demolish them.
All right, Philadelphia, Detroit. Philadelphia, because Detroit is just a dumpster fire right now.
I'm taking Detroit.
I'm taking Detroit. I think they looked really good this past week, and I think they might have enough to beat Philly.
Okay, Tennessee at Indianapolis. Again, I'm going to take Tennessee. Derrick Henry's just too strong right now.
I'm taking the Colts.
Jer?
Tennessee.
Okay, next we got Cincinnati at the Jets. Obviously Cincinnati, because the Jets and Cincinnati did just pull an epic win last week. Zach?
I'm taking the Jets and Joe Flacco. I'm just kidding. It's Cincinnati.
You're lucky.
Cincinnati by like 40.
If I'd have written that down, you'd have been stuck with the Jets. Jer, I assume Cincinnati because you're not an idiot?
Oh, yeah, by like 45.
All right, next game, just as obvious, Rams over Houston. Anybody disagree?
Yeah, Rams. Yeah.
All right, next up, we got New England at Chargers. Chargers all the way.
Chargers.
Jer?
Chargers. Yeah.
All right, Jacksonville hosts Seattle. Again, I don't care if Geno Smith's starting at Seattle. Ooh. Oh boy, there's a lot of thought going on here.
I like Jacksonville.
Zach,
I know. I hate the Seattle team right now. Like, it seems like everything is...
So, I'm the only one picking Seattle here?
No, I haven't decided yet. There's 2 minutes. There's Pick'em's... Oh.
Just remember who's holding us up here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I know. I can feel me holding me up, okay? Trust me. You don't have to remind me what's occurring right now.
We'll let the listeners and viewers infer what they choose to infer by statements made by hosts here.
I'm riding with you, Jared. Let's ride the Jacksonville bandwagon together, baby.
Yeah, baby. Duval.
Oh, boy. All right, Washington at Denver. I'm taking Denver.
Washington.
You got to keep up that streak. Oh, boy. All right, Tampa Bay at New Orleans. Tampa Bay.
Tampa.
Jer?
Tampa.
Okay, Dallas at Minnesota. I'm going to take Dallas. Please don't everybody pick at once.
Well, I mean, Dak's probably not 100%, but I think everything else is firing, so yeah, Dallas, but probably a little closer than I'd like.
Zach, down to you, buddy.
Yeah, I guess I'll take Dallas, but I think it's gonna be a good game.
All right, and the Monday night game next week, the New York Giants host the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this one's going to be a blowout of epic proportions. Kansas City.
Chiefs.
Well, Rob might actually get a good rating for that game, but yeah, the Chiefs are going to win.
All right, that is going to do it for this week, guys. I hope you had as much fun as I did chasing those white rabbits off the top. It was fun. A lot of great conversation this week, as we tend to have oh so often when we do this. Jared, tell them where they can find us.
You can find us on Twitter at Handoff Inside. I think that's the Twitter handle. I've been posting a lot of tremendous information, memes, just lots of football content. Give us a follow. Engage with us. Love it.
And you can find Zach turning his camera into a disco ball on our show every week. You can also find us on Facebook, The Inside Handoff, facebook.com/The Inside Handoff, or whatever they change the name of Facebook to in the next week or whatever, I guess. You can find us on that platform. Guys, this has been great fun. I hope you've enjoyed us as much as I have. For Jer, for Zach, I'm Johnny. We'll see you next week when we hand it off inside.
I got you, Jer.
Once again. Oh, he did the pen flip. We'll see you next week, folks.